Hi everyone, and welcome back to House Polished. I was like gaping gumlessly there into the camera. Yes, we're here for our final discussion of season 8 and of Game of Thrones in general. So I think we're going to have very mixed opinions today, which is good. And I am going to start with Claire. Claire, how about we start with you if you want to give us your polished choice, initial thoughts and rating.
Okay, so I'm going to put my camera on for a short while just to show you my polish. And I'm wearing actually May's breast cancer awareness polish from Artist Nails. And this one here is a beautiful Cronall. And this is, I mean, I wanted to wear it anyway. As soon as it came through the door this morning, it was like, okay, I'm wearing this. And as I was painting my nails, I thought, how can I make this into a Game of Thrones polish? Well, it's called Maiden of Stone, and I did think maybe this can be a tribute to all of those characters from the books that didn't quite make it into the TV show. So this is on behalf of all those characters, namely Lady Stoneheart. So, who of course was Catelyn Tully, who you never got to see, Lisa. So Cat Tully actually did come back in a completely different character after the Red Wedding, and we never got to see her on the TV show. And book readers were constantly, season after season, are we going to see Lady Stoneheart? Are we going to see Lady Stoneheart? So, Maiden of Stone for both Brienne, I guess, is the maiden, but in support of all of those characters, including Lady Stoneheart. And I would give my rating as, oh my God, how do you rate this episode? I think I'm less annoyed about it now than I was when I first watched it, like the day after I watched it. I'm not as fed up about it. So I think in the main, I would say a lot of it, the arguments that people have about it not making sense was just because they didn't have the time to make it feel that way. So because of that, just mainly because they didn't take the time that they really should have done. There's 4 episodes missing, let's face it. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Cool. And we'd say hi to Meridian, who gives it a 2 out of 10. So I presume that's 2 out of 10, Meridian. And Lisa, how about you? How do you feel about it?
Okay, so I'll start off with my polish. I'm not wearing it because I didn't have time to change my nails, but I have Canvas Lacquer Iron Throne in my hands here, just because the name of the episode was the Iron Throne. That's why I picked this one. I'm wearing another Game of Thrones polish. I'm wearing For the Watch by Prism Polish right now. So I didn't like this episode. You guys know how I feel about it. I texted them right after this episode and said I should never watch the final episode of a show that I like again because I've been burned too many times. And so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Number 1, I'll give it a 1 point is for the score, because again, the score is always amazing. 2, it was visually gorgeous as always. And number 3, the acting from the actors was great. They just weren't given what I thought they should have to work with. So that's what I thought. So.
What were the other shows that burned you?
Just Dexter. I hated the ending of Dexter. I really, no. And Lost. Those 2 other shows, like it's like should just never watch the final episode ever again of a show that I like, because the only show that's had a satisfying ending was Breaking Bad. That's it. So
I like The Sopranos ending as well.
I never actually saw The Sopranos, so
okay.
I can't judge you on that one.
Okay. All right. So Pollyanna's back in the house. Johnny B. Crazy's here. Hi, Johnny. So before I get started, I picked, not for the name, not for anything, but I did pick just because, based on my personal opinion of this, and basically only nail polish people will get why I picked this. I picked a bar glitter because I love bar glitters and I loved this episode. So I know I'm in the minority when it comes to this. This is called Frilling Me Softly, but basically it was just any bar glitter. Because Lisa, like you guys get why that is, okay? So, and it's house polished. So I'm ending on a polish that makes sense, right? What do you think,
yeah.
Claire? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's yeah. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
So yeah, so it's also called Frilling Me Softly, this one in particular, and I used it in a Sansa manicure during the week because this thrilled me just kind of softly all the way to the end. Yeah, I gave it 10 out of 10 on Johnny's thing the other night because that's how I felt on Monday, but on a rewatch, I bumped it down to a 9, and I know everybody in the chat is not going to agree with that, and that's fine. From a very personal point of view, I found it satisfying. And I said on Johnny's chat on Monday night, I could, as a book reader, fill in the gaps. But certainly from a TV point of view, Meridian, I'm not going to convince you. Like, you have your taste, I have my taste. So there you go. From a book point of view, I think I could fill in the gaps. But from a TV show point of view, can totally see why people are dissing this episode, why people didn't like this episode, why people are lukewarm on it or completely hated it. But yeah, the reason I bumped it down to a 9 is because for me, the only thing that really jolted me out of the first episode and prevented me from really enjoying it was the Dothraki stuff, because it just didn't make any sense in the Unsullied stuff. I didn't quite get that didn't make sense to me at all. There's loads of things that don't make sense about the way D&D have ended this season, and loads of things that haven't made sense in the season as a whole. But I have lowered my expectations. I've said this several times. Since season 5, Game of Thrones became something very different to me. And I just think that I was really satisfied with the ending. I liked the choices that they made overall in terms of it was rushed. It was completely rushed. I'll agree with that. But and I think if you're only watching the show, Bran makes no sense. For sure, Bran makes no sense, especially because they took him out of a whole season. So it definitely doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so let me say hello to some people in the chat. So we have Johnny, Meridian, and Halcyon, and Ertach. How are you all? So yeah, and P Sand is in the chat as well. So yeah, so I did like it. So that's it. I was very satisfied. It definitely wasn't a lost ending for me. I think for me, like, I mean, Ivan this morning we went to see John Wick 3 last night, which I bloody loved. And Ivan was like, "You are the weirdest person when it comes to your taste." Because I love Beckett and Pinter and like lots of really complicated, plot-driven, character-driven pieces. But I also adore John Wick. So I mean, take that for what you can. I'm all over the place with my taste. So and for me, Game of Thrones in the last couple of seasons has been closer to the John Wick spectrum than anything else. Definitely not the George or R. Martin spectrum. And Claire, you made a good point about Lady Stoneheart. I mean, that's where George parted ways with D&D a long, long time ago when they did not include her. He said that several times. But yeah, so in terms of an ending, I also hated Lost. Hated the Lost ending. That was the first time I'd been really committed to like online communities and stuff like that. And I really hated the ending of Lost. But the reason why I hated the ending of the Lost, it felt like a gotcha moment, and there was nowhere for your imagination to go. There was no finality. And there was nowhere for your imagination to go with characters. And I think a good ending to TV show or book or movie or whatever has to do one of two things. It has to be very final, like at the end of Hamlet, everybody's dead. Spoiler alert, sorry if you haven't seen it since the Renaissance, I'm really sorry. Everybody's dead. There's like Horatio and the Prince of Norway, and like pretty much everybody you've been with is dead. So that's it. There's like a very final point. Or it could be the end of like the Grapes of Wrath, where you have that amazingly poignant scene at the end, and you don't know, are they going to live or die? What's in store for the characters as we move out of this? But you're okay with that. It's like it's not quite a cliffhanger, but your imagination is still with those characters and you can kind of imagine where they're going to go. And for me, that's how they ended Game of Thrones. I'm kind of in my head all week. I've been like, I wonder what it would be like under King Bran, and I wonder what it'll be like for Sansa, and what will Jon do when he goes into the north, and what will Arya like. So for me, they haven't ruined those characters for me as such. So there you go. So guys, are there any comments in the chat that you want to read out before we go on to our discussion? I'm trying to. The chat went by very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of people agreeing with you, Catherine, that there's a decided split from the book readers. I think around sort of the end of season 4, where it was like, okay, right, this is going to be different. I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. It's not going to be the same as the books. So I think a lot of people who are book readers did kind of adjust their expectations. So it's probably not as horrifically bad as an ending or a portrayal, should I say, as it could be for the people who are show only watchers. So I completely understand why Lisa's furious about it, because there was a lot of things that were set up, really intense storylines that just had no payoff or made no sense at the end and were very rushed. And that's the worst thing you can do, I think, for a TV audience. I mean, I did, I was, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a case of, I wish they'd have just put a bit more effort into expanding the storylines a bit. I think everybody, including the kind of higher ups at HBO, seemed to be really quite fed up with the fact that it was rushed. And also, of course, this is going to have an impact on them as network producers of like, well, not only did this not really pay off how we wanted it to, but this could really have an impact on what we want to do as a network for the rest of the story. I mean, I've heard rumors already that some of the prequels might be, on shaky ground because of the reaction and this ridiculous petition that's now got over 1 million signatures. Yeah, I think they could have done a better job. They didn't. They could have wrapped it up a bit better. I think, you can take really, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think, well, it was it was actually enjoyable to watch. If you think of that scene where Drogon is burning, obliterating the Iron Throne, that is a feast for the eyes. It really is amazingly well shot. But did it make sense? I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of things where you different scenes where you go, wow, that's amazing visually, but what does it mean? It doesn't really answer the questions. Oh, that left me kind of feeling unsatisfactory. So it's very, I don't know, it's 50-50. Maybe I should have said 5 out of 10.
I mean, there's comments in the chat about the writing being terrible, and I think the story was terrible. I'm not so sure about the writing being terrible. I loved the scene with Jon and Tyrion, for instance. I thought that was very well written. There was a nice callbacks, especially to the pilot episode and to the first season where they meet for the first time, and obviously to Aemon Targaryen. And even now, I've seen now that everybody has calmed down. The conversation has now turned to, was Tyrion playing everybody the whole time? Was he playing Jon? Is Tyrion the real victor here? Because he knows something we don't know, because we didn't see those conversations with Bran. And again, to me, that's the best thing about Thrones. It just it keeps you wondering what happened, and it keeps you theorizing in a certain way. So I agree there's definite problems, but with the story, I would say not necessarily with the dialogue. I thought the dialogue was okay. Yeah. So where should we start our discussion? Because I don't know if we should go scene by scene or where do you guys want to start? Lisa, where do you want to start, since it was so weak for you?
I just wanted to say something with Claire said with the Drogon burning the throne. I took that to mean that Drogon in some way knew that the throne was the reason that Dany was dead. Not Jon. The throne was the reason. That's why he burned it. That's what I got out of that scene.
Yeah.
I really, that scene was it was visually gorgeous. Like the visuals were amazing. Like that's not one of the issues that I have with it. It's again the writing, the storyline, the writing.
What's the biggest thing that made no sense to you, Lisa?
Bran, no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
whatsoever.
You don't take a protagonist out of a whole season and then put him on the throne. And they knew that going in to, like, they've known that for years, that this is the way it's going to end, right? They know that Bran is, I presume this is, we were asking, I was asking the other night in Johnny's stream, I presume that's the third holy shit moment that we were supposed to get. I couldn't quite figure out, is it the Dany stuff, or like, which was more surprising to you, Lisa, as a show watcher?
Definitely Bran. You could see Dany going the way that she was going. You could see that. And number one, because Emilia Clarke is an amazing actress, and her face acting is down. But just the whole Bran thing, like, what else did he do this season? What has he done this season?
I totally agree. I think it definitely makes sense from a book point of view, I think. He's the first POV in the books, first main character POV in the books. It's very powerful, clearly. We just never saw it in the show. And I think the biggest problem is they took him away for a whole season. So they had, like, this isn't a problem with season 8. This is a problem. What season was that? Season 5 he was missing? Or season 4? I think it was 5. Anybody in the chat want to remind me? But like they took him away from for a whole season, so he wasn't part of the game. And they never made Blood Raven or the Three-Eyed Raven's intentions clear.
Yeah, it was season 5. Yeah, AJ saying it was season 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a huge problem.
Did you guys see that meme where it's Bran sitting and he's like, when you do no work but you get A in the group project?
Yeah.
And Bran, we haven't seen Bran since the end of book 4, right? So this is an issue because they had no story. So George has released what, 9 chapters now from Winds. So we have some of Arya, we've some of Sansa, we've bits and pieces of other characters. Jon, we don't know what's going to happen with Jon, but there was enough there from Dance to kind of fill out, and we could hear of other characters in Dance and kind of figure out what was going on. Bran is he's a complete loner. Nobody knows where he is in the books. Nobody's referencing Bran outside of his own chapters. So they had nothing to go on. So the conversation, from what I can tell with D&D, George was like, Bran is at the tree now in the books, but he does end up on the throne. And D&D had to figure out how to get that sorted. And they couldn't make it work, obviously, for TV show. I can make it work in my head, but from a book point of view, but that isn't good enough for TV shows watchers.
How do you make it work in your head, Kat? Because I can, but I'm just wondering if it's the same as you.
I think in my like little head canon, I think it's a battle between magical forces in Westeros. And I think we're going to get more of that in the books. I think it will come down more to that free will versus determinism kind of thing. I don't think it's just necessarily going to be Bran versus dragons or R'hllor or that kind of thing. I also think that the children maybe are trying to put the last of their power into this system through Bran. But I do think that Bran is going to depart from Blood Raven, like the Three-Eyed Raven in the books. I think he's going to depart from what he wants out of power and what Bran wants. I think Bran, he said it enough times in this season, it's your choice. Unlike Blood Raven, who's constantly trying to manipulate the choices of people, I think Bran is going to become a better Three-Eyed Raven. I hope. I don't think he's going to be the potentially evil Three-Eyed Raven that we kind of get hints of in the books. So that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. But we know George has said Bran is the most difficult chapter to write. We've said it so many times in our reread. We've said it so many times here. And it's clear now why. Because George has never given a POV to somebody who's supposed to keep power. and now he has to write POVs for somebody who's going to get and keep power. So now we know why Bran, it's not just the magical stuff, it's also the real world political stuff that's making it difficult for George to finish these books, I think. So that's it. That's
I mean, there's I think, when you get chance, I know you're a busy mum, Lisa, but when you get chance and you because you do get absorbed in them, and they are really, you whiz through them and you get thrown into them and you find yourself in that world, and it's a pure escapism. The books are so much more, there's just much more of a breadth to them, so that they can, because I know what you're saying, Kat, is that even with a massive amount of source material, which they didn't have, they just had this is what happens at the end, I still think them, or even the most competent writers, would have found that really difficult, because from my perspective, this is ultimately about having somebody in the right position who potentially is the last hero, is humanity's poster boy, if you like. So I suppose it is sort of magic versus non-magical stuff. But I think how George is going to do this is it's going to be about the impact that it will have. So there will be a really intricate build up there where we're rooting for this to happen for Bran, I think, in the books. And it won't be where we're left thinking, well, is Bran evil then? We don't know. Can he see the future? Can he see the past? Does this mean he was kind of behind the scenes tinkering away in the background? Because that is another theory from the TV show that would be very plausible. Oh, right. So Bran knew that was going to happen, and that was going to happen. There was massacres. He kind of engineered everything so that would happen with Daenerys, and he doesn't seem to really care about anybody apart from getting into that position, and that line that he delivers, well, why do you think I'm here, or why do you think I came all this way? Just jarring if something isn't built underneath that. There's no kind of commentary or proper chronology or anything at all that leads us to be comfortable with that situation. However, just think about this. One thing that Bran can do is he can pick up any piece of knowledge, any bit of literature. But so basically the Citadel and the Meisters, they're done for, because all of the kind of spinning and twisting and weird kind of point of views. Have a look in this book, Bran, it says this, and he can just flip into the past and go, no, that didn't happen. That wasn't the right commentary. No. So he can basically spend his entire monarchy rewriting the history of humanity. He probably won't, but what will happen from now on is we will have, or Westeros will have, things will be more factually correct, or at least, or does that make Bran even more powerful? Because I mean, he's got Sam, hasn't he, as the Grand Maester, which again is a bit weird how he jumped into that position. I don't know if there was any kind of time skip or not, but
there had to have been, because it was rebuilt. Like, there seemed to be a lot of rebuilding there. Plus, Sam has to go back to the north, pack up his suitcase, bring it back.
But I think ultimately, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, in the books, I think George will write a really good, rollicking story about how Bran really does break the wheel, and the way he does it and what impact that will have for the future. They stumbled around and made such a shit show of it, to be honest with you, because that, I think, it makes sense to me, but the way it was portrayed made no sense whatsoever. The delivery of it, the fact that Tyrion was brought out by Grey Worm in shackles and everyone just listened. What do you think should happen then, Tyrion? Right, okay, we'll do what you say. Yeah, I. We all agree with it. That's fine. That's what's going to happen. Made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Why would anybody even listen to Tyrion at this point?
Well, I think Sansa and Bran would.
Yeah, but yeah.
And they're the most powerful people at that meeting. Royce will follow them, Edmure will follow them. So I think they would. Yara would have met Tyrion. So that made sense to me. The Bran the Broken stuff. I mean, I emailed you or I messaged you guys. I kind of liked the fact that Dany, for some reason, thinks she needs to break the people in order to break the wheel, and we end up with Bran the Broken, who reflects the real kind of conflict, how broken the people are after these years of like civil war, basically. I also like the idea that Tyrion knows something everybody else doesn't, because he's had a long conversation with Bran, so he knows how truly broken Bran is. Bran isn't just physically broken, he's psychologically broken. It isn't just Bran on the throne, right? It's Bran and every other, like, you know, three-eyed raven there's ever been, or green sea there's ever been. And as Meridian and Sunny, hi Sunny, I didn't get to say hello to you, or AJ, hi AJ, as they said, the children of forest have kind of won this in a way, and it's probably like the children of forest are gone, but now they get to live on as well. So I kind of forgive them for that in a way. Tyrion as well with the Citadel. The Citadel are definitely fecked now that they left him out of that Song of Ice and Fire. But sorry, Lisa, what do you want to say here?
I was just gonna say, I love the way that Sansa put Edmure in his place. It was hilarious. But the thing, okay, so Tyrion's in shackles, telling everybody what they should do. But when Sam says, "Hey, why don't we just let the people vote?" everybody laughs at him. It's like, that would have made more sense for everybody to vote and have Bran be king than them just deciding Bran to be king, in my show watching point of view. So
that makes sense. That totally makes sense. I just, it's made me more excited for the books now, because if this is the way that George is going, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with Bran being king. I'm not even sure, did they refer to him as king? I couldn't remember. I can't remember. Sorry, my brain doesn't work very well anymore. Did they refer to him as king? Or it's just to lead us all, right? Or to rule us all? I presume he's king, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it ending with, you know, this is a kid that was thrown out of a tower. Like the Lannisters have basically put him there, in, like, not just Tyrion, it's also Jaime and Cersei put him there. They've kind of led him to this point, which I really like as well. I think there's Halcyon mentioned of the poetry and prose elements of Bran's story in the books. But again, I get to fill in these in my head canon. I get to fill in that. I know that's not satisfactory for everybody, for sure, TV show watchers especially. But I think the thing that I've disliked the most, and just this season in particular, but I've seen it in other seasons, I've left forums because of this before, because your taste in something is automatically equated to your intelligence. And that is completely ridiculous and completely unfair. I don't think anyone's taste in a thing necessarily says how smart they are or how worthy of an opinion they are. So it's gotten very nasty and negative in certain parts of the community online, which I did not like. So I'm very grateful that House Polish have provided a safe space for everybody. So sorry, Claire, you were going to say something.
No, I'm just reading back through the comments. Halcyon again, always bringing the epic comments, and it's true. We would never. The whole concept of Bran as a character is going to be difficult for George to explain that in the books, let alone be able to translate. He's just never ever would have been able to translate that over into the concept of the show. So they had to just do this, like, oh my God, how do we make it so that Bran becomes king at the end? And they could have done it in a different way, I think, for the TV show. It still would have made little sense, but just this really was too much of a leap for everybody. It was far too much of a leap. But yeah, I'm just left, like I say, thinking about the impact of, like, wow, what this means now for knowledge and information and people's understanding of history. You know, just it's completely different. So that's, to me, is the new system, not necessarily how things fall politically, because in the books this will be very, you know, it's all very intricate, the political alliances and the marriages and just basically the fabric of society. And they've explored some of that, some of it in quite a bit of detail in the show, and then that didn't seem to matter at the end. And I think that is a lot of the frustration for people. So the show watchers, it's like, well, that didn't seem to make sense in the context of everything else that we've known for 6, 7, 8 years. And for the book readers, it's like, okay, that potentially could be, I can see that being the ultimate outcome, but that's in no way, shape or form how that's going to happen at all whatsoever in the books. It's not going to be the same journey. It's going to have to be something that's much more plausible. I mean, just like, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've been asking myself questions all week, like, why did that? And then it's like, well, I suppose, and then like trying to rationalize it. So, you know, with Bran, no, I don't really want anything. I don't want to be a lord. I don't want Winterfell. But oh yeah, what you don't know is I'm going for the big chair. I'm going for the top prize. Really? That just didn't seem.
To be fair, he has to stay in the chair he's already in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's just like I don't know. What did that mean?
That's why Drogon burnt the chair, because Bran's already got his.
So this is what I didn't understand about this. So they're going to have a council meet every time now to pick. By the way, I've just put like eye makeup all over my eyes, so I now look like I should be in what's the Clockwork Orange. So I didn't understand that. Are we going to have? Is Bran going to make a new Green Seer every time they need a new That's ridiculous. Is Bran going to make a new Green Seer every time they need a new leader? That certainly was a big question. I think there's a couple of comments here.
Yeah. Halcyon thinks that this is what Bran's going to do is restore Green Seers. So this, I guess, will be. I mean, it's very much dark dominated. You've got Sansa in the north. That's a big power base. The funniest meme that I saw this week was the one where somebody's pressing the big blue Brexit button, and underneath it's like 3 seconds after Bran becomes king, Sansa's like, we're out we want independence for the north. And it's really that, is that what the balance was all about? Just, you know, but again, that makes no sense. This is an insight into my head this week. Why would that make sense? Apart from the fact, you know, unless it's a complete council of nepotism and it's just Bran, yes, you can have whatever you want, elder sister, but at the same time, you've got Yara Greyjoy and this new fancy Prince of Dawn and Sweet Rob. They could all have stood up and went, yeah, and me too, please. We also want independence on exactly the same grounds. Why not us? And there was just no.
Okay, I'm going to defend this a little bit.
Okay.
Right. I think along those lines as well, but Sansa cannot go back to the north without having an independent north. She can't even take the throne, really. And I was all on the whole Queen Sansa of the Seven Kingdoms thing, but actually she could never do it because that means that the north has lost their independence and they won't put up with that. She has to go back with an independent north, no doubt about it. The others, however, I mean, the reason Tyrion is putting this guy on the throne, putting him forward for the throne in the first place, they just didn't explain it very well, is he's the most powerful being in the world. He embodies all of human history. They have been through a hell of a lot. Under Tyrion and Bran, any smart person is going to go, okay, my people have been through a lot. staying unified right now is the best thing for us.
Yeah.
The Northerners, that's a different story. Sansa could not go back. The Northerners weren't going to accept that. The Northerners fought that war for her. I that's the way I see it. I think that they had to put the Magic Kid on the throne. Really, there wasn't really an option. When if you look at it logically, there isn't an option. It has to be Bran, really, because he's magic. So, and whatever, Tyrion listened to him. I mean, I liked the fact that Sam threw out the idea of democracy, but that would have been implausible. It just doesn't. It's not ready. The world isn't ready for that yet. But it's nice that he threw it out there. But I don't know. Was there another option? I mean, apart from Jon, by the way, knows nothing. He's the opposite of Bran. He knows nothing. He cannot be king, okay? He's a great leader, don't get me wrong, but he cannot be king. He knows nothing. They have been telling us that from the start. He clearly knows nothing, because he could have said, oh, Dany went somewhere. I don't know. She flew off. Don't know what she did. She burnt the throne and flew off. But clearly, the Stark in him went, I did it. So he knows nothing. So so it had to, I cannot think. I don't know who else. I mean, Edmure, no. Howland Reed, it seems that Howland Reed was there. Some random bearded fella, no. So it had to be Bran. Hi Mackenzie, how are you? So so that's
and Jon is,
sorry, P. Sand said it. Yeah, he's a horrible leader. You're right. Jon doesn't make great decisions either. You're totally right.
Jon going back to the north was the only thing that really made a lot of sense to me. I always felt, both in the books and the show, and they've really heavily kind of pushed he's got the true north in him. He was only really ever happy, and he's completely in love with Ygritte, but there is something of the true north about Jon. In the books particularly, he seems to have a real affinity for the north, but also beyond the wall, and that just kind of, that makes it. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how come Jon got that kind of punishment and Grey Worm just get let off completely, whereas he's basically a war criminal, and should be put to death. But I mean, he's going to get butterflied, isn't he? You don't know this, I don't think, Lisa, but Narth, where Missandei comes from, they have poisonous butterflies, and only the people that are born in Narth are kind of immune to it. So but what's going to happen is the I don't know if D&D even know this, but the Unsullied, when they get to Narth, will be dead within a matter of a few weeks from a hideous disease from the beautiful butterflies there in Narth. So yeah.
Yay! Kill them all. By the way, all the Dothraki should have killed themselves straight away. They were all her blood riders. They should all just killed themselves. Or gone to Jon as Cal, one of the others. And maybe that's why, but again, they didn't tell us this, but maybe that's why the Unsullied didn't just kill Jon straight away. Maybe the Dothraki said, whoa, that's not how we do things. So there could have been tension there, but we don't know because we didn't see it.
P-Sand, that's true. Book Jon wants Winterfell. He dreams a lot of Winterfell. He dreams about the crypts, and he dreams about being not worthy, and he dreams. But I just think I think he's just going to be like Mance 2.0. I think that he's just going to be happily exist in the north. He will solidify the wildlings' relationship with south of the wall, Winterfell, and the northern clans, and he's.
Meridian says, what the friggin' hell did he need Night's Watch for? They don't, and Jon realizes that, and they all leave, right? That was he's bought everybody. Everybody's gone. I don't think Jon is. They're not going back to that wall. I think Jon is, like you said, Claire. There's a Mance Raider type thing. Johnny B. Crazy says Grey Worm gets stung and dies in the pilot of a sequel, naked and afraid Narth edition. I would watch a whole season of Grey Worm being chased by killer butterflies. Like, really wanted Grey Worm to get his comeuppance. That was, oh man. Yeah. So Mackenzie said, or should he be Cal Aegon? Has a nice ring to it. Yeah. So what did you think of Jon? You love Jon. Lisa, what did you think of his ending and his season 2 re-hairstyling?
I think it made sense for Jon to go back up north. That was one of my predictions. My last minute predictions was he's going to go back up north. I didn't know how or why, but I figured that he would. So I think that it made sense for his character to end up north. So I'm happy with that ending for Jon.
And how about Dany? What did you guys think of Dany in that whole scene? Because I guess we're kind of all over the place. We're not. But...
I thought that Jon was going to kill her after what had happened the previous episode with her, the way that Jon had seen how she was treating these people. So I think it was fitting for her too, especially to be killed pretty much in the same spot that her father was killed, kind of in and just before her, like she touches the throne, like right as she does in the House of the Undying, or she doesn't touch it in the House of the Undying scene. So it fit into what we've been shown for Dany. So
I think as well, just with the whole Dany thing, I mean, she died getting what she wanted, right? So where could she go from there? I mean, she's, there's no good place she can go from there. So that kind of had to happen. And I just thought visually that was spectacular.
I think for me, what was difficult was it just felt forced, like there wasn't a massive amount of chemistry between them. And it kind of felt like always, from Jon's perspective, it was always like a little bit awkward and a bit sort of, and then he kept just moving back from her and moving away from her. And of course, from her point of view, it's like, well, I'm Targaryen, you're apparently Targaryen, it doesn't really matter, don't you understand the history? And he's just like, oh, can't get over this. But also, I think he's just kind of mentally abdicated any notion of, well, why don't we get married? Why don't we become this Targaryen power couple? I think he knows that's never going to work, which he just keeps repeating this phrase of but you are my queen, you almost like you're the queen, you make the decisions, you tell me what to do, just don't be a bitch about it. Oh shit, you've been a bitch about it. There you go. And she gets shanked. But it just seemed to happen really quickly. There's just a couple of things that really sort of distracted me from the actual emotion of the scene, apart from the fact that the chemistry between them has never been fantastic. But just like when he stabbed her, which I don't know what it was he stabbed her with, by the way, that would be quite interesting to find out, just some random dagger, or is this really a kind of Nissa juxtaposition? But when the blood was coming out of her nose and her mouth, it just seemed to kind of melt into her skin. It was really weird. If you go back and watch that again, if you can be bothered to, it's as the blood's running down her face, it's like her skin is like alabaster and it just sinks straight in. And it's like, what? And I just couldn't take my eyes off that bit to kind of get over the fact that, like, oh, Dany's dead now. That's it. I thought the Drogon. Yeah,
blood running out of her face. I mean, I don't think that would happen with whatever type of, maybe it would, whatever he hit. Yeah. It seemed a bit strange, but for me, it was just the imagery of fire and blood. Because we have the blood and then we have the fire from Drogon. But it was a bit strange that just something that P-San says, Jon made no sense, had to be convinced to kill Dany. I think they rewrote the ending. I think they actually did rewrite the ending. I think initially Jorah was supposed to survive. And
yeah, there was lots. So they filmed lots of alternative endings. And now, if you realise that if Jorah didn't die and he was the one that, because he's from the north, Jorah, he's kind of like, this would have been bloody perfect and made a lot more sense if Jorah had survived, but then started to, because he's the most trusted advisor, through his eyes, we can start to see the little cracks coming here and there. He then alerts the Northern Powerhouse and, Sansa, and then you've got all of the other advisors, like Tyrion, Varys, you know, and that they could. There's just the only problem that I had with that Jon killing Daenerys scene was there wasn't enough agency there, and there wasn't enough build up to it. There could have been a lot more, and I think now having Jorah around makes a lot of sense to other scenes that were cut and edited. So it was just, I don't know. I mean, if they had time to film all those different, because there were a few alternative scenes, and you know, they do, you know, a big show like this, you would imagine, yeah, okay, we're going to film a couple of different scenes at the end for the alternative final scene. But this was way back, episodes back. They were tinkering around with filming lots of different alternative scenes. So we're thinking about those 55 days that they said they filmed the long night at Winterfell. Who knows how many of those 55 days never saw the light of day, but actually would have made sense.
I don't like the idea of Jorah being the one to kill her, but apparently there is an ending where Jorah with Tyrion convinces Jon to do this. Now, in my like fan canon, if I'm going from the books, and if he had survived, I would absolutely love if it was Barristan that had been in that moment.
Yeah.
The guy whose duty it is to protect kings and queens has to make that. I would have loved that. Absolutely loved that. But of course they killed Barristan off, and Barristan will probably die quite soon in the books, I'm guessing. But yeah, I would have loved to see Barristan do that. It's weird because Jon and Dany had way more chemistry last season. I got it last season, but this season, yeah, I don't know what they didn't even talk about the fact that they're aunt and nephew. I don't know why they didn't even, like, it was obvious that's why Jon is pulling away, but they didn't even mention it. And it's like, we've been looking at twins get it on for 8 seasons. Can you not even talk about it now?
I'm just laughing now at the whole, like, the, you know, videos that were made completely assuming 100% that Daenerys is pregnant. Yeah, Dany's pregnant, and Jon, and because I've said lots and lots of times, the thing that I can't get my head around with that is Jon was resurrected and brought back from the dead. Now, I'm not a biology, you know, I'm not an expert in human anatomy, but I've got a feeling that possibly may have affected his fertility. Just saying. But we never got a hint of anything like that, you know. Who knows whether or not Cersei was pregnant? I don't know. I think probably she was. But Daenerys, no, not a hint of it. But yet we were all convinced.
Yeah, I still thought it was. I thought it was the only kind of way they could do it with who was left, really. But I loved the scene with Tyrion and Jon. I think the thing that friends of mine who've been texting me and didn't get the Bran thing, and then I said, well, you know, they have to give it to the most powerful person. They went, okay, but what about Jon being a Targaryen? Why build it up for seasons if it's not going to matter? And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's not going to matter. It won't matter in the new Westeros. It won't matter who your parents are. That's the point, and I think that's the point George wants to make. It's not going to matter. We talked about this last week. We're going to talk to death about R plus L equals J, and it'll matter to a point, but that doesn't mean he's going to get the throne. And I think the whole point of this, that kind of bittersweet stuff, is that you won't be entitled to it just because you're Targaryen. And I think they didn't make that a big enough thing for show watchers, though.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been building this up, but Jon doesn't feel he's entitled to it, and nobody else does either. Jon doesn't want it just because of his blood.
You know, the thing that kind of irks me is, and we get this much more in the books, that how can I describe this? It's kind of excused away by Bran's age. Well, he's a young boy, he doesn't really know. You know, the age is different in the books. He's probably about 11, 12 at this point in the books. But I'm just going to come out straight out and say it, the abuse of Hodor. That's at the very least unpleasant, and at the worst just absolutely horrific way to treat another person. And in the books, it's worse. He doesn't. He seems to skip straight over some of the fundamental rules of then the kind of etiquette behind warging and you know just being able to inhabit another being. So there's a part of me that's a little bit kind of Bran, because I'm not sure he's worthy. I don't know, despite all his power and the magic and the ability and the potential, there's just something there where I feel like he needs to kind of pay for what he did in terms of
he is paying
what
for what he did. He lost himself. Bran Stark is gone, and but there's nobody morally just enough for the throne in this world. Everybody has done shady stuff, and yes, what Bran does is terrible to Hodor, and not recognizing his individuality and his agency just because he has a mental disability or whatever, and he doesn't realize, in the show at least, that he's the one he did it until he does it. Okay. And then he never does it again. So we at least have to acknowledge that he's learned from it. Unlike other people in the show who go on being horrible human beings. And like Dany would have gone on being a horrible human being. So I agree it's not good, but he was a child. I think the worst thing is that Mira didn't get any say. Mira should be on that bloody small council. Bring back Mira. Justice for Mira Reid, please. That's what we should have. What was I going to ask you guys? I can't remember now. And anyway, do you guys have anything you want to throw at us? Any other questions you want to, or anything else you want to talk about from this episode?
I'm just going to throw this out here, and I'm going to take it. There was a hint of Brogon. #Brogon. I'm going to say it. When we had Where's the Dragon? Don't know. He was last seen wherever. And when Bran said, shall I look for him? And I thought, yes, go and look for him and get trapped in the dragon and become Brogon. So yeah, I think there was a hint of a possibility of Brogon there. So I'm having it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Johnny says, but he'll never know he's paying the price if it isn't him. Yeah, but Dany never pays the price, really. She dies as the queen of the Seven Kingdoms in her mind, right? That's it. So, it depends on how you see that. It's very, as with all of this, as why we love the book so much, is this moral ambiguity that does exist among the characters. And I'm so glad Emilia Clarke got really pissed off this week about people calling Dany the Mad Queen. I'm so glad, because I was not on the Mad Queen board at all. I didn't like it. I don't think she's crazy. She may be evil, thinking she's good, but that doesn't mean she's crazy. Because you let somebody off, they don't become culpable for their actions or whatever it is. Like, you're letting them off the hook if you say, "Oh, she's crazy." That's not. She knows exactly what she's doing. It's just not good. Sorry, Claire. What did you want to say? Something else there?
No, I'm just saying, Catherine Harding, I completely agree. Yeah, in her mind, yes, but she was never actually crowned officially the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms.
But she's convinced herself that that's what she's convinced herself that that's what it is. So what did you think of, you sent us that meme during the week about Brienne, Lisa? The fugly, Jaime Lannister is a fugly slut.
I thought it was hilarious just because, poor Brienne, she was in love with Jaime and he just took off and broke her heart. I did like that ending for Brienne writing in the book for Jaime. I love that. It was nice the way that they ended that for Brienne. But yeah, poor Brienne, she just had her heart broken. So that was a good meme, though. I really liked that.
Yeah. P-Sand, I think it was P-Sand, I apologize if it wasn't in someone else, said earlier on, Catelyn Stark, nee Tully, House Tully won. Yeah, because House Stark probably dead unless Sansa gets married and marries someone and keeps the name, but we don't know. Because Bran is not ruling as Bran Stark. That, like, in case you missed it, he's got a sigil with a raven on it. He's not ruling. He's ruling as Bran the Broken, Bran the Three-Eyed Raven, not Bran Stark. Arya is gone. Jon is gone. So that's House Stark, House Targaryen, probably House Lannister, unless Tyrion decides he's going to have a couple of kids, but probably not, because Bran said, "This is you're going to pay us. You're going to pay back the kingdom by in service." So who knows? But yeah, Tully's Edmure's going strong with kids, probably, and probably took the towers as well. Probably took the free stuff.
Yeah. Oh.
So, how happy were you with Bronn?
Oh, well, I mean, I think I asked, it was either it could have been in MP's podcast, but what will Bronn end up getting what he wants? And he does. But then again, as annoying as that is, and again, that's another thing that show only watchers have got a real problem with. But this is how politics and power kind of works, and this is how, and it's right. This is how the Lannisters, one of the most powerful families in Westeros, had their origins. It was, tricked out of Casterly Rock was tricked out of the existing lords by Lann the Clever, and so this is kind of like modern day version of Bronn the Clever.
Yeah, because Tyrion, it looks like he's getting written out of history by the Citadel. His history is still incorrect in the White Book. My husband spotted that. That still says that he's the murderer of Joffrey Baratheon. So right. They haven't changed that. So I wonder how much will Tyrion rewrite his own history, or will he will that like be his penance almost to not allow that kind of Tyrion the Clever legacy to continue on? He won't
have the notoriety. I think I can't remember I've been watching lots of videos this week, but there's somebody that was saying that this was just a complete nod to book readers, or a wind up for book readers, in the Tyrion chapters you get more pages throughout the books. Tyrion is like number one in number of chapters, the amount of the length of the chapters. Tyrion is one of the big characters, so this is just a kind of two fingers up to that, really. He's not in the TV show's version of A Song of Ice and Fire, so I thought that was quite clever. But this is another, that tome, that particular book that Grand Maester Sam presents to Tyrion, is the very first thing to be written that can actually, that is factually correct, or that definitely can be kind of fact checked by, like, who needs Google when you've got Bran? So any book from that, I mean, I don't know. If I was Bran, I would just sit there reading through the books in the Citadel, going, nope, with a big red pen, that didn't happen. Right? Oh, did it? Was that right? Let me just flip back and no, that was completely incorrect. So, as a sort of former history student, that fascinates me, that somebody would be able to do that and be in such a position of power as well.
I guess, yeah, it is interesting that Mackenzie must have said it, because she's just asked that question about Tyrion and his chapters in the books. Halcyon said D&D never understood this material. I don't think that's necessarily true of everything in the show, actually. And also, George doesn't think so. If you read his blog this week, they definitely understood something. He confirmed R + L = J in his blog this week. So they understood that much. Catherine, hi Catherine Harding. I don't know if we said hello. They must have had Tywin's death in the book, though. That would have said if Tyrion isn't mentioned. or sorry, what would they have said if Tyrion isn't mentioned? That's a good point, but it's kind of like Mushroom and Fire and Blood. Everything Mushroom says in Fire and Blood isn't to be believed, and you're like, oh, we need to look closely at what Mushroom says in Fire and Blood. Mushroom is another kind of little person in the world of Ice and Fire, right? Or he is, isn't he? Yeah, he is. Mushroom is his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he's kind of ignored by the Maesters in that book. He's, oh, if Mushroom is to be believed, blah, blah, blah. And all these side notes. And you're like, let's look at what Mushroom says in a bit more detail, because there's probably a bit of truth there. Pisan said murdered by his enemies. It could just say murdered by his embittered son or something like that as well, right? They don't necessarily, they don't want to give another Kingslayer of the Lannister variety too much notoriety. And yeah, that's true. Did I have anything else that I wanted?
What did you think about Tyrion? Again, I think it was clumsily done, but I think it needed to be done. We needed to have some sort of confirmation about what had happened to Jaime and Cersei, and Tyrion had to see that with his own eyes. What did you think of that scene?
I can't not think of that scene, but I think of the meme about that moment when you realise if you'd moved 10 feet, you wouldn't have been crushed. Or if they just stayed on the map. But nonetheless, it was like, I mean, despite the fact that both of them look bloody perfect, it was very sad. Obviously, I doubt they're gonna get crushed in the books, and he might still find the bodies, maybe. But although I hope. That's been the most disappointing. Like, I'm not a full-on Pollyanna, right, folks? But the most disappointing to me was Jaime's arc this season, without a shadow of a doubt. I will forgive anything else. Jaime, nah. Can't forgive that. Can't forgive the Brienne stuff. It was cringe. It doesn't make any sense. And I hope George doesn't do that.
But I mean, there's always been a very strange relationship between those three siblings, actually, not just the odd relationship between Jaime and Cersei, but Cersei could have killed Tyrion straight away right outside the walls of the city when he walked forward to treat with her. He could have been killed both by Daenerys and Cersei at that moment. But I think he's always been confident that I don't think she was ever going to kill him, despite her threats. And I think he genuinely did he did care for their children, and all three of them, Tyrion, Jaime and Cersei, in the end, it was all about this child of Jaime's and not wanting to die. Just going back to Brienne for 1 second, I think this is again another example of why did all this have to sort of happen off screen? Clearly, she's now Kingsguard and she's Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. What happened to her oath to Lady Stark? Why is she not Queensguard in Winterfell in the north? I don't.
Yeah, she must have been released.
But they could have made that plausible. They could have had a quick 20-second scene. There was a lot of wandering around the ruins. I mean, I like that. I do like that, but it was a bit of overkill of the just Arya walking around and Jon and just it was just there was a bit too much of that. I think we could have had there could have been a couple of scenes that just would have helped to give a little bit of a sense check to the audience of, Grey Worm flying around, teleporting from one end of the Red Keep to the other. Brienne suddenly becoming Lord Commander. It just, I don't know. It was too much. That kind of stuff, mate, was nonsense to me, and it could have been remedied really quite easily in a couple of short few second scenes.
Yeah, P-San says we needed a scene of Tyrion arranging chairs. I loved that scene. I loved it so much because I knew people would hate it. I loved it. But I also think that actually was a really interesting scene, because it showed that Tyrion was really nervous, and he was trying to have everything proper and ordered, and he wanted to look like he deserved it, not that he was just there because he's a Lannister. Because the other times he held it was because he was there because he was a Lannister. That was the only reason Tywin had him there. But now he's earned it. He's earned that position. I mean, really, I don't know, Lisa, if you agree with this, but this was a Tyrion episode. This is a very Tyrion-focused episode, and a Peter Dinklage tribute to Peter Dinklage's fine acting. And this is it. We're all leading up to this, and I don't think they've given him enough to do. Maybe in the last, I don't know, 10 episodes, including from season 7. I don't know. How did you feel about that?
I agree, but I mean, I could watch Peter Dinklage all day long because he's just a wonderful actor. So, I you know that whole small council scene where they're talking about brothels, and I found that so cringy. So cringy. Why are we talking about brothels right now? Like, seriously, come on. We could have been having discussions on John being found with the blood on the floor and all those kind of discussions. Yeah, it was cringy to me. But I do like Peter Dinklage.
I think I could watch Peter Dinklage put together IKEA furniture. HBO, new show, please. Yeah, I guess the brothel stuff is like a callback to Tyrion's past as well, and to Littlefinger, although Bronn will not be as clever as Littlefinger. But in saying that, Bronn has used chaos as a ladder, so, you know, maybe. Davos arrived. My mum was lighting candles the last couple of weeks at Mass for Davos, and they worked. So there you go. My atheist heart is like, you know, it has been proven wrong. Yeah, I kind of liked that small council. It's like, oh, I want to be on the staff night out. I said that on Johnny's stream the other day. I was like, yeah, that's the small council I can get on board with. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Somebody mentioned Pod's knighting as well. Catherine mentioned it. Yeah, it would have been. It was nice when he came out and was like, "Oh, Pod, he got knighted."
But again, that could have been a sweet little 10-second scene, really quickly. It didn't even have to have any dialogue. You just have some sort of quick clip montage of Brienne knighting Pod, and also something around what happens with Gilly now that Sam is Grand Maester. How did that even happen? When
I guess,
not, yeah.
But Claire, you said that they sped through Dany's stuff, yeah?
Yeah.
That didn't happen until like 35, 36 minutes into this episode.
Yeah.
So they, like, even like 10-second clips here and there, they still have to set them up. And
yeah,
there wasn't, like, I know a lot of people saying there was like a lot of walking around, a lot of wasted space. I don't know if there was that much room to do everything. I think this is a problem that has plagued them. I mean, did we need Ed Sheeran's scene in season 7? Like, this is going way back.
Exactly.
This isn't a problem of season 8. This was a problem of 5, 6, 7. There was filler in there. I didn't need to see Yara and Ilaria trying to get on. Do you know, like, there's other things that could have been, you know. So I think they actually did speed through the stuff in this episode. We just didn't realize how, and then skipped other things. So that's the problem. You have to try and fill it in. But I just want to ask, I know, Lisa, this is a book thing, but I just want to ask Claire about, how did you feel about George confirming R + L = J? Were you surprised that he did that?
No, because I think I've got a feeling that this is going to be it's not going to be as important as people think it is, just for the, you know, it was that kind of reflected in the show. Like you said earlier, Catherine, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. So the fact that people know doesn't really matter, because it isn't really going to matter. In terms of John's fate, ultimately, I think he will end up back in the North.
And to be honest, you know, if you want complex political drama, we don't have it in our own world either. Look at the state of our own fucking governments. So yeah, just like yeah, R plus L equals J. I think I think there a lot of the I think everybody behind the show and connected to the show were genuinely shocked with the backlash against the show. And that's what happens when you, I guess, rest on your laurels, maybe CGI laurels a little bit.
I think they could have made it 100% better and had everybody kind of still arguing about it, but just not to this kind of, everyone just feels really deflated. And the best quote I heard this week, I read it somewhere, I can't remember, I think it came from one of the Reddit forums, was sticking with the disappointing end. And that kind of that sums up the majority of people's feelings, I think, this week. But for me, I'm sticking to, would it really have been that? I'm sure the cast, it wasn't a cast thing. I'm sure it was just, we're all a bit fed up with this now and we just want to see if we can get it over and wrapped up and over and done with. You feel that, you really do feel that. It's lacking for me at least another 2 or 3 episodes just to make it make a lot more sense and to have more of that satisfying, enjoyable, I mean, I knew there would be a twist. I think I said there's going to be a twist, definitely. And the show producers are going to think, this is what George does, so this is our version of this massive twist. But they're not, they just didn't execute it as well as George would in the books. And I think what I said was there will be a twist, but it's all, I think the controversy will be how people interpret that twist. And
I was happy because they got me.
Yeah. Oh,
they
completely.
Got me.
I had
and I loved it. No, I like it. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So they got me. Halcyon says, I found it funny fans wanted HBO to remake the season. Totally agree with you. What from the same folks? Silly. Yeah, besides, now this fan fiction soap opera TV show is over. The utterly different canon is all that matters. Certainly, like this, from how this story works out, I'm certainly looking forward to the books. But I have to say, and maybe I have rose-tinted glasses on, this show has been an amazing show for me to meet people, because when I was into Lost, this didn't exist as a forum as such, the Google Hangouts and stuff like that. And I know I met you guys through Nail Polish as well, so that's doubly fun. But it's got me through season 8 has got me through one of the most difficult periods of my life. So I will forever be grateful to D&D for that. So I am wearing rose-tinted glasses. But to defend the show as well, and Lisa, you touched on it earlier, who knew we were going to get the actress we got in Emilia Clarke by the end of this? She was phenomenally good this season. She was so good. I thought she owned it, and especially now that we know what she'd been through in the first 2 seasons, health-wise as well. Great. And Kit Harington, I think Kit Harington got better and better. I saw him at a show in the West End in January, and he is fantastic. He's a fantastic stage actor. Actually, I think he's not good on TV, but I think he belongs on the stage. He was so great. You could hear a pin drop when he was delivering lines or when he was reacting to stuff. So amazing. So yeah, I think for me, I've loved that part of the show. I've loved the production of the show. I've loved what it's done for Belfast. I've loved what it's done for CGI. I love the fact that it has raised the standards for visual effects, for music, for everything across TV and probably movies as well. And it's brought people into fantasy, which is good. Hopefully, because we've become so critical, justifiably so, of the storytelling aspects of the show, that it'll also raise the standards of storytelling as well, like Lost did. Everybody's terrified of ending like Lost, right? And I think, as much as people hated this, I don't think, even if I'm looking at it from the opposite point of view, don't think it's as bad as Lost. What do you think, Lisa?
I'll agree with you there. Definitely. Lost was just a complete disappointment on so many levels. Like I felt like I had lost, how many seasons were there? 8, 9? I felt like I lost like 8 or 9 years of my life for that ending. I don't feel that way with this ending. I'm just disappointed with the way it ended. So
yeah,
but yeah,
but it doesn't feel like a waste of time.
No, absolutely not. I mean,
That's
especially with the friends that I've made with you and Claire and all that kind of stuff. It's brought a lot of joy to my life. So I'm definitely not going to put it up there with Lost. How about we go Lost? Game of Thrones, Dexter, Lost. How about that?
Okay, that's good. I feel as well. I would still rewatch Game of Thrones. I'll never, ever, ever rewatch Lost. Because there was like, that's the way I feel about certain things about this show. I definitely rewatch it. It was tolerable enough. No, it was good enough for me. I loved seeing Bran getting the thing. So let's talk a little bit about prequel. Claire, you mentioned it earlier on about how there's a lot of talk now that HBO might be scared off doing a prequel. Lisa, would you be scared off watching the prequel as a show only? And will we be talking about it? Should we review it? Should House Polished come back?
I'm not opposed to that for sure.
Great. But it wouldn't scare you off watching it.
Oh no, I'll watch it. I was at the point where I'm like, I'm just gonna cancel my HBO. Yeah. I'm so mad. And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that because they've got me hooked in with Chernobyl right now.
Oh, is it good? I need to watch
so
that.
Good.
Okay, cool.
And then I'm like, I'll just keep it.
Plus the Deadwood movie is out next week.
So and what that was, Little Big Lies is coming back too. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'll keep it. But
yeah, and you know what? Maybe the problem for D&D was the fact that they were tied to the books. And that's a huge thing to have to be tied to and not know where they're going. So, I mean, maybe the prequel will be liberated by the fact that they're not going to be tied to any canon. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, I think they're already. I think they're already in production. Yeah, P-San saying that they're already filming the prequel. So Jane Goldman is at the helm, and I really like her. I like her work, and I think she's going to be interpreting it really well. I think Naomi Watts has been cast already. I do think they've already started production, so it's going to be that world, that landscape, but it will be interpreted completely differently. We'll obviously have lots and lots of different characters. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it goes ahead, and I think it will be probably as popular, because I think people are left with that feeling of, you need to satisfy me with this somehow. So I'm going to go ahead and watch the prequel. And I mean, I think I spent 24 hours in my kind of meh feeling of, can I be really bothered with the rest of this now? This has really kind of soured my enthusiasm for anything to do with Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. But that only lasted, in all honesty, for about a day before I thought, no, actually, he's really, I'm more thinking about the Winds of Winter. He said this week that, he said somewhere, I think it was in Australia somewhere, that he was going to be, basically, you can lock me up. You've all got, you've got permission to completely lock me up in a cage if you haven't got Winds of Winter in your hand by 2020. I'm hoping that now the show is over, if that's going to be a lot quicker than that, I think it'll be before the end of this year.
Yeah, you're far too hopeful. I thought it'd be out before we were finished our reread, Claire. It's not gonna happen. 2020, I think. I'll be on 2020.
Yeah.
When Trump gets re-elected, they'll bring back Winds will be out, and it'll distract everybody. See, George has a grand plan. P-San says, what I liked about the ending, a Targaryen name kneeling to Stark, it felt good. Yeah, I mean, there's also jokes going around about why didn't they, because Grey Worm's ships are leaving, why just Johnny's gone, you can stay. But don't think it's a punishment to send John north. I'm kind of with you guys. I think the punishment is death for John. He knows that it's oblivion that awaits him. But north is not punishment necessarily for John. What was I going to say to? Oh yeah, by the way, that scene with the Starks saying goodbye and that very Lord of the Rings type scene where they're all saying goodbye to John. We have our picture taken down there because that is just outside or just inside Dubrovnik. If you want like a real proper like Game of Thrones experience, Dubrovnik is amazing. And Belfast, do the Belfast tours as well. Iceland is great, but it's difficult to get to. So it's expensive as well. But Dubrovnik and Belfast, amazing. So I'm going to miss Dubrovnik because I assume we won't get King's Landing in a prequel because it didn't exist. So so I'll miss Dubrovnik because I love it as a destination. It's definitely like so cheap and the people are lovely. So yeah, it's really, really nice. My only worry with the prequel is that they're going to leave an explanation as to why Bran is on the throne till the prequel. That's my only, like they're going to have this whole weird green seer thing. Maybe that's a good thing, but I don't know. Any final thoughts, ladies?
I'm left feeling as I anticipated I would be feeling, which is I enjoyed the show in the main. I enjoyed the visuals. I think the majority of the time across those 8 years, if you weigh it all up, I think they did a pretty good job of trying to interpret the depth and splendor of what you find in the books into a medium of you've got to put so many shortcuts. There's so many horrible decisions that you'd have to make. And could we really have done it any better? I know I can sit here as an armchair critic and go, well, you should have put an extra episode in, or you should have put an extra clip in here and blah, blah, blah. Fair enough. But I think in the main, a pretty decent show. But I'm left feeling as I anticipated I would, which is I'm really looking forward to the next book.
Yeah. That's good for me. And I would not want the responsibility of telling George's story. And I know they opted for that, right? They opted for that, so that's on them. But I think it was a much bigger thing than they probably thought it was going to be. Lisa, sorry, Claire.
I was just going to add, I don't know if Lisa watches Westworld, but Westworld is coming up, and I'm really, really excited about that. And I don't know whether you or our viewers would be interested in us covering Westworld.
When does that start? Next year, isn't it?
Season 3. There's been a recent trailer out, so which makes me think it's fairly soon.
I would definitely be up for that. I'd be up for The Witcher as well.
Oh, I haven't seen The Witcher.
It's not out yet. Henry Cavill is in it, and it's
Henry Cavill.
With Netflix. But that's something I'd be interested in. Or his Dark Materials. I don't know if you read those books. Did you read those books?
No, I haven't read those books.
Claire, have you read his Dark Materials?
No, I haven't. No.
You don't have to read the books to enjoy the show. It looks like it's going to be great, though. And then we have Good Omens as well, the Neil Gaiman thing. So there's lots of good stuff coming up in the Game of Thrones void. So, Lisa, any final thoughts from you?
I'm just going to leave this saying that, like I said, this has brought me some great friends, and so I'm not disappointed in that. But yeah, that's why I'm going to leave it as it brought me joy through friends. That's what I'm going to say.
That's so sweet. Moni, thank you so much for coming along. I really, really liked the ending, but then I'm a massive John Wick fan as well. John Wick 3, Halcyon, if you're there, you said John Wick 3 was amazing. It was so good. I loved it so much. And all I will say to anyone who's seen it, I want a Sophia spin-off. I just want a Sophia spin-off. Halle Berry with her dogs. I just want it. I want it all. I love it. Love it completely.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'm just looking on. Westworld 3. Why did they do that? They've dropped a trailer already, months in advance, but it's been pushed back. And
I was only
22.
so about the second season, so I'm hoping that the third season is better because they're taking big breaks. It should be
Yeah.
much higher standard. Considering that Game of Thrones didn't take those breaks in the beginning, you know, I don't feel like Westworld is. It's
I'm
living up to the breaks.
excited to see what's his name. The guy who played Jesse Pinkman is in it.
Aaron Paul.
Yeah, I'm excited because I like him as an actor. So
me too.
But yeah, so Moni, I enjoyed it. Claire was our grey area today on it, just very grey, very. She was right in the middle, and Lisa didn't like it. But I really like the ending, and I'm happy it's over. I'm glad it's over. I'm not like I don't know if I'm glad there was an end for me ultimately. And all I will say as a final thought, who else are you going to give power to if you don't give it to the Magic Kid? You have to give it to the Magic Kid. So it's either someone with a dragon or someone who's magic. And one scene that we didn't mention, Ghost.
Oh,
Lisa, you should have given it a 4 out of 10 for Ghost.
Okay, I'm gonna bump it up to a 4 because of Ghost. There you go.
That was
So
great.
that's my final thought.
the pet that was promised.
Excellent. So, guys, do you have videos out this weekend, ladies? Or Claire, you're with MP tomorrow, is it?
Yes, I think so. And I have just, let me press done after processing. I'm okay now. On my channel, I've got a video with all the polishes from Catherine's visit. So I swatched those polishes on that video there, and it's a bit of a chatty, a chit chat video if you want to watch me swatching some polishes that Catherine brought over for me in her recent visit, and some cheeky photos in there as well.
And Lisa, do you have any videos out this weekend?
I do. I have to film it, but I got a belated birthday present from Debbie, and she says that I have to film it. So I don't know what is in this box, but I'm assuming it's good.
Oh my God. Do you have any lemmings left on your list? It seems like Debbie just knocked all of your lemmings.
She just knocks them, like she's called the Lemming Slayer for a reason. I still have a couple, so we'll be interested to see what's in that box. But she says I have to film it, so I'm going to film it later today, and it'll be up tomorrow.
Well, thank you to everybody in the chat for joining us throughout the season and seasons of Game of Thrones, and thanks for joining Claire and myself as well throughout our reread. We've really enjoyed it, and it's been brilliant hanging out with you. And I will I'll always be in contact with House Polished, but hopefully House Polished will be back with something else in the future. We'll decide as the time comes along. I'm going to take a bit of a break in the summer from YouTube, but guess we'll be back then and see what happens. So thank you so much to everybody. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Claire. I am so lucky to have these two wonderful women in my life. So please go and subscribe to their channels. Even if you're not a nail polish fan, just go and check them out and drop the odd like every now and again. That would be really nice. That would show my love for them.
We're good, guys. We're good to listen to if you just want to nod off and you're not interested in nail polish. There you go. We'll help you get to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and bye.
Bye.